Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time talking to mid-career folks and dealing with that difficult interview question. I know you've had them, and that is this. Tell me about yourself. It's difficult for a variety of reasons. We'll talk about that. Also begin to get into a little bit of the structure of a way to handle that question in our second segment on this. But first of all, why is that difficult? It's difficult for several reasons, not the least of which is, what do I talk about? Do I talk professional? Do I talk personal? Do I talk some of each? I think conventional wisdom says you talk professional. I think most people are okay with that. So, that said, the next question is, how much do I talk about? How detailed do I get? Understand in everyday back and forth dialogue, for the most part, when you're in a situation with a peer of yours or you're in a group, how many times have you had somebody actually cut you off, perhaps at the end of the sentence, but once they understood what you were saying and they had their thought they wanted to articulate, they would jump in with whatever it was they wanted to say. They meant no offense by it, no harm, no foul. You didn't take offense, but that's just how we communicate in our culture. Problem is, during an interview, very often those rules are kind of thrown out, and the employer will sit there and let you complete your thought without interrupting you. Now, they may offer some signals, they may nod their head, they may make some sounds that show that they understand and agree with you, but very often if we're waiting for that cue of someone interrupting us and we don't get that, we tend to ramble on, and that, again, can be a problem. I would argue, too, that the employer is not so much concerned with what you're saying as much as maybe how you're saying it, how you're coming across. Now, think about that for a minute. When you first meet somebody and you start in dialogue, if they use poor grammar, if they appear to be nervous, if they slouch, any number of things, if they ramble on, if they talk too slow, talk too fast, if their voice cracks because they're nervous, they're fidgety, you get a vibe that just doesn't feel right. And so when you get this question, you want to come across as conversational, relaxed, confident, all of those things. Easier said than done. So with that in mind, what I thought we'd do is talk about a structure. You know you're going to get this question, so you might as well have at least some kind of game plan going in. And there's some reasons why we have this answer set up the way we do, and I'll try to explain that. But first, let me just mention there's an acronym that I've put together called GEESE, G-E-E-S-E, GEESE, and that's something that you probably want to kind of take into account and think of as a structure for your answer. So GEESE, the G stands for greeting, the E would stand for education, the second E would stand for your experience, the S would stand for skills, or I've got a substitute for that, and we'll get to that in our next segment. And the final E would stand for an employer question. Now, why do you want to ask a question at the end of GEESE? Well, the employer is really saying, please sit down, get comfortable, and get ready because I'm going to tell you some stuff about the company. I'm going to tell you about the job, and then I'm prepared to ask you some questions. After that, I'll allow you to ask questions of me, and then we'll wrap things up. But before they get into the interview, they don't just say, hey, sit down, shut up, and listen to me. I'm going to talk to you for a while, and then I'll ask some questions. They don't do that. It's rude. So they'll say typical things such as, tell me about yourself, or even innocuous things like, did you have any trouble finding the place, or anything like that, just to get you talking, get you relaxed. So it's a question that, again, you're not here to unload all of your ammo right now. Do not go into a long-winded 5-minute answer. Don't go into reasons you left a job. I wouldn't even get into a lot of reasons why this position is a great fit for me at this point. Part of the reason for that is you don't want to sound like a broken record too much. I think here you just want to get in, ease yourself in, show enthusiasm, end it with a question. And also by asking a question, it helps establish your comfort zone or compatibility with asking a question during the interview. If you think about that normal interview structure of them telling you about the job and company and asking questions, only then followed by your ability to ask questions, it really strips you of the chance to work some things in during the interview. And I think if you establish your turf early on that says, I'm okay with asking questions, then that's to your advantage, just as long as the question is not a real difficult one. And frankly, asking, could you tell me more about what you're looking for, makes a lot of sense because they're prepared to talk about that in the first place. So in our next segment, what we'll do is we'll actually get into what GEAS stands for and how the phrasing should work and flow from one letter to the next. But that'll wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series, talking with mid-career folks and dealing with that question about, tell me about yourself. I'm Randy Wooden, and thanks for watching.